2NURFM with Ted Mulry Gang and Jump in My Car, and we've got the gentleman that was pretty much responsible for that song joining us in the studio at the moment from the gang. It is Les Hall. Good morning, Les.
G'day, Mark. How are you?
Mate, I'm pretty good. I was listening to you, or watching you, listen to that song there, and it was bringing back some memories of when it was recorded and that sort of stereo sound with the voices being all over the shop, wasn't it?
Horrible when you listen to it now. As I said to you, I prefer the mono version. We recorded that with Ted Albert, the late great Ted Albert. And at the time we recorded it, when it came to the guitar solo, he wanted a completely different sound. So I went to the middle pickup and I hated it, really didn't like it. I didn't like the feel of the way the song turned out and everything. So when we actually started doing it live, I got the other guitarist, Gary Dixon, to play the guitar solo all the time. I just wouldn't go near it. And it was only when we started playing again in, end of 2016, that I decided to swallow my pride, stop being a petulant little fool, and play the damn thing again.
I was going to say, it's a bit late not to like it now because it's kind of been out for a couple of years.
Yeah. One or two people know it, so I got no choice. But it is what it is, you know. It's the sound of 1975.
And not a bad sound either. What's it like being back on the road? You mentioned that the band's been back since 2016, so you've had, I guess, a couple of years back now, full swing. Is it feel different to it did in the 70s?
Well, for a starter, we don't have our singer, songwriter, vocalist, bass player, frontman, you know, so that was a big thing. And for that reason, in fact, I didn't want to do it. I said to Herman, look, come on, without Ted, you know, TMG is not really TMG. But what we decided to do was get a guest in on bass. So originally we were using Mark Evans, who was the original bass player for AC/DC. This time round, we're using Tony from Sherbet. So we've got a very nice bass player. And, of course, we've got Ted's brother, Steve, doing vocals. So it's amazing how much he sounds like his brother sometimes.
That's some of the thoughts we got from when you guys were in the Hunter last time around, because people were ringing us up and saying, look, I went and saw the Ted Mulry Gang last night or last week, and yeah, it was a really great show. So it seems like you might have the mix just about right there. I guess as years gone by, everyone sort of has a bit of a different feel to sort of being out and touring again. Obviously, you had your reservations because of that Ted's no longer with us. But how are you finding it, sort of being out again?
Well, it wasn't just that Ted isn't with us anymore. I hadn't touched the guitar for 20 years.
Okay.
So it was a real learning curve, and I learnt, as many people do in my situation, it's not so much the fingers, it's all in the head. You know, as soon as you've determined that you can do it and you realise you can, then everything's okay. As for playing now, it's definitely different without Ted. There's a different dynamic on stage. It is remarkable how much his brother is like him. The two of them are the most nervous people you've ever seen in your life. Both of them, before we go on stage, have their own routines. Ted would like to sit down and we'd just talk about Stones concerts or anything that would up-vibe him over a couple of vodkas, you know. But in the case of Steve, he has to go into his own space. He rehearses lyrics. Honestly, the panic level is just phenomenal. But when he gets on stage, pulls it off and does a great job.
I guess even though those rituals are uniquely their own, I guess that's those things that sort of are able to make them confident enough to go, you know what, I'm ready to go, let's hit it and run.
Absolutely, and just about everybody on the planet has their own routine before they go on stage. In fact, you, although you've done this quite a few times, I'll bet you've got your own routine before you come on air.
I look very nervous. I could be in the most and you ask anybody that knows me, I could be the most comfortable situation in my life, and I will look like I'm about to give a speech in front of 500,000 people.
Yep, there you go.
And that's at home watching television.
Yeah.
So what about yours? What about yours?
2 vodkas and just it's really it's
and that's
horrible.
In the car on the way to the gig.
Yeah, absolutely. That doesn't include the other 2 bottles. No, don't do that
Not
anymore.
at all.
The body won't take it anymore. But only Ted was a real drinker in the band. The rest of us were just part-timers. And he was the only one that smoked cigarettes as well. And as a matter of fact, Mark Tinson, a local boy who was in Ted Mulry Gang for about the last 5 or 6 years with Ted before he passed away, said on more than one occasion to Ted when he was smoking in the front of the car, you know, those things will kill you. But, you know, one of those things, true words were never spoken.
Well, it is great to have you guys back in town. Of course, you'll be at Belmont 16s on March the 10th. Now, we're actually going to be giving some tickets away from February 19th. Now, we're doing it in a very unconventional way. We're actually destroying your song, which we heard a moment ago.
Yeah, I heard about that.
It will be 2NURFM's car karaoke. So most of the announcers have gone and recorded ourselves singing the first part of the first verse, and we're going to sort of throw a few of those on air, and people have to ring up and guess who it is that's singing.
Good luck, guys.
When I recorded mine, I said, "Look, I don't want to hear it," and I left the room, and the guy that recorded it just laughed. So it's going to be pretty bad.
No, he was probably laughing at you, not wanting to hear it, and that's a normal reaction.
Yeah.
I mean, most people don't like to hear their own voices.
So when you were in the recording process, was that a part of that? Like, or were you always going, you know, we've got this thing, let's have a listen to it so we can drill down on it further, or?
Oh, well, we do demos first. We do rough demos of the songs, and sometimes the final product ended up totally different to the way the demo started. Jump in My Car, for example, Ted had the melody. I took the music to him, played it to him. He said, yeah, oh, okay. And he grabbed his bass, and we sat in the lounge room going over the idea, just the basics of the song. And then he had a melody in his head, but what he would do is put a lyric to that melody, and I cannot tell you what those lyrics are on air, but they worked for him, and they were rhyming so that he'd know exactly where his cues were on the melody. And yeah, that's how it was done.
And from there, it would just those lyrics would become lyrics that you could actually put out on a record.
Yeah, well, he developed those lyrics into something a little bit more, tamer for a start.
Oh, well, that's a very good insight into how you guys are working, and great to see that you'll be back in town. Les, thank you so much for jumping in with us this morning.
Thanks for having me, mate.